In March of this year, I did a video titled, "Could This Be Why Montego Bay is Flooding?" It's a nice, short, entertaining video. You should definitely watch it if you haven't already. In it, I hinted at the possibility of climate change being a part of the problem. A couple comments under the video made it quite clear that not everyone believes climate change exists, and if they do, they are not aware of how it may affect Jamaica or that it may be caused by humans. And so I decided to delve into this unexpected controversy a bit deeper and take a look at both sides of the story. Now, this is a timely video, especially with the 27th session of the Conference of Parties, COP27, of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, being held between November 6 to 18 this year. The COP27 is the largest annual meeting with the purpose of tackling climate change. According to the UN, faced with a growing energy crisis, record greenhouse gas concentrations, and increasing extreme weather events, COP27 seeks renewed solidarity between countries to deliver on the landmark Paris Agreement for people and the planet. So let's start with the definition of climate change. According to the United Nations, climate change refers to long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns. These shifts may be natural, such as through variations in the solar cycle, but since the 1800s, human activities have been the main driver of climate change, primarily due to burning fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas. In school, we learned about greenhouse gases and how they create the greenhouse effect. If you forgot, here is a brief reminder. So basically, the Earth's surface and atmosphere absorbs a certain percentage of heat or energy from the sun, and a certain percentage goes back to space. For years, there has been a natural balancing act that keeps Earth's temperature stable. You have probably heard of Earth being referred to as the Goldilocks planet, and that's because the temperature is just right, not too hot and not too cold, which makes it perfect for life on Earth to survive. Carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, and methane are the three major culprits of the greenhouse effect, as these gases remain in the atmosphere for up to approximately 1,000 years, 120 years, and 10 years respectively. These gases are emitted from natural processes as well as human sources. For example, carbon dioxide is produced naturally from volcanoes, decaying plants, and animals just breathing. How do humans contribute to this issue? According to statistics, coal, oil, and gas, when burnt, are responsible for the production of most of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Then we have methane. Humans cause the release of methane through the process of extracting oil and gas, coal mining, and landfills, while natural sources of methane mainly come from wetlands, oceans, and interestingly enough, animals. What a lot of people don't know is that animals like cows and sheep also contribute to methane emissions. These animals are called ruminants. According to Wikipedia, ruminants are hoofed, herbivorous, grazing, or browsing mammals. Other examples include goats, deer, moose, giraffe, and many more. They ferment food in their stomach in order to extract nutrients and energy. This process leads to the production of methane as well as other byproducts, and this methane is excreted through belching and the decomposition of the animal's manure. Therefore, the cattle industry has been identified as one of the major contributors to greenhouse gas emissions. Then we have nitrous oxide, which is naturally produced by microbes that are found in almost all soils and water, but it is also emitted from agricultural practices such as the use of fertilizers, which basically elevates the rate at which these microbes transform nitrogen into nitrous oxide. Remember I said these are the three major greenhouse gases? Well, you've probably heard about a couple others. For example, chlorofluorocarbons or CFCs. They come from aerosols, air conditioners, and old refrigerators. Though they are very potent with the ability to hold over 10 1,000 times more heat than carbon dioxide, there is thankfully much less of it in the atmosphere. However, it is believed to be one of the main causes of the hole in the ozone layer, since CFCs travel high up in the atmosphere and destroy the ozone molecules. That's why CFCs have been outlawed by many countries. But did you know that water vapor is also considered a greenhouse gas? Yup, water vapor is actually considered the most abundant greenhouse gas, which may seem alarming. However, according to the article Steamy Relationships, How Atmospheric Water Vapor Amplifies Earth's Greenhouse Effects, found on the climate.nasa.gov website, some people mistakenly believe water vapor is the main driver of Earth's current warming. But increased water vapor doesn't cause global warming. Instead, it is the consequence of it. Increased water vapor in the atmosphere amplifies the warming caused by other greenhouse gases. In addition, a warmer atmosphere is able to hold more water. An increase in these gases interfere with the planet's ability to naturally balance energy. They do this by essentially acting like a blanket around the Earth, trapping heat and increasing the planet's surface temperature. And so we have global warming. That's just the beginning of the story, as this is connected to a lot of things that are happening now. For example, intense droughts, rivers drying up, water scarcity, melting of the polar ice caps, rise of sea levels, flooding, decrease in biodiversity, increase in the severity of wildfires and devastating storms. And here's the thing, all of these are connected and create a destructive cycle. For example, global warming causes the ice caps to melt, and the ice caps melting leads to further warming since they are also responsible for reflecting some of the heat back into space. Melting ice caps also lead to the increasing sea levels. Thermal expansion also causes the rise in sea levels because as water heats up, it expands. As water heats up, water evaporation takes place, which means more moisture in the atmosphere. More moisture in the atmosphere is one of a few things that feeds a hurricane. And so it goes on. Then we have fire. In some areas of the world, every year they have wildfires, but recently those fires have become hotter and are burning for longer. Why? Well, there are a number of things that contribute to it. For example, whether or not you are in a dry season. If there's no moisture in the air or the ground, then that may pose a problem. But the problem is also compounded by the decline in biodiversity, as monoculture, i.e., the cultivation of a single crop in one area, can present a perfect setting for a fire to spread quickly, especially with the absence of undergrowth that could possibly absorb water. The presence of water in the air or ground would either prevent or at least slow down a fire. And of course, the more trees burning causes the release of more carbon in the air, further contributing to warming the planet and the creation of a destructive cycle. Now let's have a closer look at how some of these may affect Jamaica, and then we are going to delve into the other side of the story, which I know a lot of you are waiting patiently for. More severe hurricanes. Warm oceans and moisture in the air are both things that happen with global warming, and they are also two of the conditions needed for a hurricane to form. The others are low vertical wind shear and a pre-existing disturbance in the area. The surges that come with hurricanes are also made worse by the rise in sea levels. According to CNN, the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season was the most active on record, and many of the storms that slammed into the Gulf Coast, Central America, and the Caribbean that year exhibited hallmark signs that they were supercharged by global warming. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, 2021 was the third most active year on record in terms of named storms. It marks the 6th consecutive above normal Atlantic hurricane season, and this was the first time on record that 2 consecutive hurricane seasons exhausted the list of 21 storm names. Now, what about 2022? Well, we are still in this season, and so far it has fallen short of predictions, but let's see how it ends. Thankfully, for the last few years, hurricanes have been missing us. Bless the Lord for our location. But even when it's not a direct hit, we still sometimes get the outer bands of storms, which may still cause some damage. And the few that did left a mark on our coastline. But we will discuss that later. The next thing is increase in heavy rainfall and longer periods of drought. Rarely enough, climate change can also cause both an increase in heavy rainfalls and longer periods of drought. As mentioned previously, as the atmosphere gets warmer, it is able to hold more water vapor. There is also a higher rate of evaporation taking place because of the heat. This causes an increase in rainfall, but it also leads to droughts in some areas on land. So the places that normally have storms will have an increase in rainfall, but the places that are located far from those areas will have longer periods of droughts. Then, erosion of the shoreline. Intense hurricanes and powerful storm surges help to erode the shoreline. Jamaica and other Caribbean islands have been faced with this for years. In 2021, the Observer article, What Happened to Hellshire Beach, shared. The dramatic erosion started between 2004 and 2008. Massive waves from Hurricane Ivan in 2004 might have damaged the coral reef offshore, but it was in the aftermath of Hurricane Dean in 2007 that the fishermen and business owners noted the most severe damage to the beach. Satellite images have confirmed that the changes happened in the aftermath of both these storms. There are other things that may have contributed to the erosion. For example, the destruction of sand dunes and seagrass beds, which are an integral part of preventing coastal erosion, construction close to the coastline, pollution, and the destruction of mangroves and other vegetation close to the coastline also contributed to the problem. The beach lost 33 meters of the main shoreline and 77 meters in another section over 15 years. It is also believed that a part of the beach migrated to Sugarman's Beach. For further information, please see the full article linked in the description box. But Hellshire Beach isn't the only beach that has faced erosion. For example, during this boat ride on Montego Bay's coastline 3 months ago, we were able to see some erosion at Walter Fletcher Beach right here in Mobay. Walter Fletcher Beach is one of the 3 beaches created by the UDC in the 1970s for use by the public. Right. Yes, I can actually see it. We also got a closer look at the recently completed groins from the Groin Rehabilitation Program spearheaded by the Urban Development Corporation. The groins were rehabilitated so that they could continue protecting our coastline from erosion. And then we have evidence that sea levels are rising. In this Gleaner article, a resident of Murren Point in St. Thomas speaks of 2 graves now underwater and the absence of trees and small buildings that once lined the coastline. He blamed Hurricane Gilbert and Ivan for their demise. And as the article noted, researchers from UWI confirmed that both Onoto Bay and Murren Point are indeed at risk. So it seems that there's a lot of evidence that climate change is happening. Well, on the other side of the story, we have climate change deniers who have made several claims that climate change caused by humans doesn't exist. Here are a few of the points they put forward. The first one I've heard quite frequently. It is the belief that climate change is normal and that it has happened before in different times throughout Earth's history, which is true. There have been periods in our history when we had either warming or cooling of Earth's temperature, and some of those have led to mass extinctions, which I think should be a forewarning because think of it this way. If this happened before oil and gas mining and burning, before landfills, before burning garbage, before the cattle industry, before CFCs, etc., all of which are contributing to the increase in greenhouse gases, then that means that this round of climate change may even be worse. Because it is quite clear to me that if climate change was happening before without human input, it will definitely happen again with increasing human input. The second point is that there is no scientific consensus on climate change. According to the UN website, 18 scientific associations have made statements backing the position that climate change is taking place. They have on their site a list of some of these organizations and their public statements, along with links to their websites. In fact, 97% of published climate scientists believe that humans are the cause of the current climate change. Some deniers even cite the fact that in the 1970s, a few scientists predicted that there would be a global cooling. But here's the thing, they were in the minority. And at any rate, that was the beginning of climate modeling. With the technology we have currently, we are able to do much more. The third point is, so much for global warming, this is the coldest winter ever. Now, data shows that overall the Earth's temperature is indeed increasing, but there's a difference between climate and weather, which we need to point out. Remember the definition of climate change I mentioned earlier? Climate change refers to long-term, emphasis on long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns. What you are experiencing is the weather, which changes daily and seasonally. And that's why, even though the term global warming is technically correct, it doesn't perfectly describe how it may affect certain areas of the world differently. Like I mentioned before, global warming is just the beginning, as it is connected to intense droughts, rivers drying up, water scarcity, melting of the polar ice caps, rise of sea levels, flooding, decrease in biodiversity, increase in the severity of wildfires, and devastating storms. The fourth is that plants and animals will adapt to climate change. Unfortunately, climate change may be happening too quickly to allow all, emphasis on all, plants and animals to adapt. According to BBC's article, Climate Change, How Frogs Could Vanish from Ponds, a deadly frog disease is spreading due to warmer temperatures and in the next 50 years could cause entire populations to vanish, according to a study. But frogs aren't the only animals in danger. Fortunately, though, according to the World Economic Forum, some animals are changing their body shapes to cope with climate change. They share the following. A study has found that animals are adapting to climate change by changing the shape of their bodies to regulate their internal temperature. The research examined how certain animals have changed the size of their ears, tails, beaks, and other appendages to deal with the heat. Animals also deal with global warming in various ways, with some moving to cooler areas or changing the timing of migration and breeding seasons. Number 5, another point that I've seen quite frequently is that the data is fabricated. And why do they believe that the powers that be would fabricate the data? Well, people actually believe the climate change topic is just fear-mongering in an attempt to control the masses. It is just another opportunity to implement measures to control society. So, as I dive deeper into the rabbit hole, I realized, frankly, the recent worldwide debacle with lockdowns and mandates only added fuel to the fire. But there is no trust. There is only paranoia. And how does the saying go? Paranoia is just a heightened sense of awareness. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm interested to read your thoughts on the matter. And remember, be civil. You can disagree without being mean. If you enjoyed the video or learned something from this, then hit the like button, leave a comment, and share with others. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications if you don't want to miss any of our weekly videos. See you next time.